Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. It feels as if I've become a silent observer, lurking in the shadows of my own home, a role I never imagined myself in. It was a distressing realization that weighed heavily on my heart, but I knew I could no longer ignore the signs. For weeks, a gnawing intuition whispered that something was wrong in my marriage. I desperately wished it weren't true, hoping I could shake off this feeling, but the truth was inevitable. Laura, my wife of 38 years, the woman I believed I knew inside and out, was showing unmistakable signs of infidelity. It was an accumulation of small, seemingly insignificant details that began to erode my peace of mind. I combed through phone records and emails, hoping to find some clue, but found nothing incriminating. Though we had no children, Laura led the life of a stay-at-home wife, channeling her creativity into crafting exquisite stained glass decorations and breathtaking windows. Her creativity seemed blissful, and I cherished her happiness. Meanwhile, I found my own satisfaction in a modest law practice. I wasn't the kind of lawyer who dazzles in the courtroom. My work dealt with wills, property transfers, no-fault divorces, and occasionally the drama of mundane legal matters. The most exciting part of my job? I never dealt directly with bail bonds, but I was the one who made sure the wheels turned smoothly. In return, my friend in criminal defense sent me a steady stream of less-than-thrilling cases, creating a cozy ecosystem of referrals. Today, as I sat in my office deep in thought, Laura burst in with a radiant smile, announcing that she was going shopping with her friend Candy Lee. She casually asked if I needed anything from the store, a gesture that struck me as both normal and painfully ironic. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was the calm before the storm, a moment of domestic bliss masking the storm clouds gathering right before my eyes. For some inexplicable reason, I woke up today with a strange sense of resolve. Either I would disgrace myself completely, or uncover some troubling truths I wasn't ready for. And here I am, diving headfirst into the unknown. Laura arrived at her friend Candy Lee's house and entered the familiar setting. She stayed there for what seemed like an eternity, about an hour, before Candy Lee emerged from the house looking slightly flustered and jumped into Laura's car. Then they sped off down the street, leaving me to wonder about the nature of their conversation. A GPS tracker was discreetly hidden in the car, and Laura had no idea it was there. I didn't follow them. Minutes passed, and soon an elegant motorcycle pulled into the driveway, its engine growling like a predator. The man, dressed in classic biker gear, dismounted with an unsettling air of confidence. Without even knocking, he walked straight into the house. Seizing the moment, I managed to take a clear photo before he disappeared inside. Feeling like a secret agent on a mission, I lingered long enough to snap a few more photos of the bike and its license plate. Half an hour later, I found myself at the mall, scanning the bustling crowd for any sign of Candy Lee. As I headed to the mall, I couldn't shake the eerie feeling that had crept over me earlier. When I checked the license plate number I had captured, my heart pounded with a mix of curiosity and fear. And so, as I sat down next to her with a steaming cup of coffee, I noticed Candy Lee trying to relax in one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs at the cafe, her expression a mix of surprise and irritation. "Ethan, you scared me!" she exclaimed, her eyes widening. "Why are you here?" she asked, slightly flustered. Shrugging, I tried to make myself comfortable on the hard chair. Without responding, I took a long, slow sip of black coffee, feeling its warmth and bracing myself for the conversation ahead. In truth, I never really liked these trendy coffee drinks. The sight of Candy Lee biting her lip and nervously shifting in her seat made me chuckle quietly. She was clearly feeling dizzy, trying to find a way to avoid the awkwardness of the moment. So I decided to give her a little break. "Calm down, Candy Lee," I thought to myself. "I know very well where she is, who she's with, and what they're up to. Honestly, I've stopped caring about it all." Her hands flew to her face, a clear sign of panic. "Damn it," she muttered. I wanted to ask her a bunch of questions or demand something like, "Let her stay with you. I'll send over all her things." No, nothing of the sort happened. She just shook her head as I turned away. Over the years, the place had changed. What started as a quirky bar and grill had turned into a biker haven, famous for its mouth-watering brisket. It wasn't exactly a family-friendly spot, but on weekends, it had a lively atmosphere. However, weekdays were a different story, often quieter and more peaceful. The moment I walked in, I was greeted by a familiar sight. Liam Hall, grinning meaningfully, handed me a frosty mug. "Welcome to our establishment, counselor. We don't see you here often." It was midday, but no fewer than 20 bikers were scattered around, enjoying the laid-back vibe. "Are we in some kind of trouble, counselor?" Liam asked with a playful glint in his eye. "No," I replied, feeling the weight of the day start to lift. "Everything all right with you?" "No, I'm in a tight spot." Liam, a few other club members, and I gathered around a round table, engaging in casual yet lively conversation. And then, in our chatter, Stephen Robinson came up, a weekend regular at the club, confident he could easily blend in with the crowd. Liam, with a mischievous grin on his face, assured me he would take care of everything. I didn't need the details, honestly. I was just ready to move on. With plenty of free time on my hands, I decided to head home. Less than an hour later, I was struck by how neatly I managed to pack Laura's clothes and personal belongings into black garbage bags. It barely fit in the car, but I got everything in. If she needs furniture or appliances, she'll have to arrange a separate meeting. The car was parked outside Candy Lee's house, but Laura made no move to come outside. Gently placing the bags on the porch, I slipped out of the house, noticing that Candy Lee was watching me from the window. Laura hadn't been in touch. No calls, no messages, no emails, not even an explanation. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Once again, I stopped by her place to drop off some hobby supplies, leaving them on the porch like forgotten relics. I had prepared a simple divorce petition, which she signed while waiting for the clerk to file it. Does she feel any guilt? Was there even a hint of regret? I'll never know. But honestly, I didn't care. That weekend, I drowned myself in a haze of drinking and laughter. But Monday morning caught me off guard. When I arrived at work, I found the place had been broken into. Although nothing was stolen, my desk had been turned into a bizarre display. A massive jar that once held pickles was now overflowing with assorted nuts and bolts. I couldn't help but smirk at the absurdity of it all before grabbing the phone. "Liam?" I left a message since it was still too early for him to be awake. "Lunch at our usual spot at noon. My treat." We met later, and he was already into his usual order. "I'm all ears, man. Spill it," I said to Liam, leaning in with curiosity. "All right. This guy shows up around 5 in the evening. A couple of guys start chatting with him, and believe it or not, they invited him to join them for a game of 8-ball. The guy's eyes lit up. He usually kept to himself. He was on cloud 9, like a kid on Christmas morning. We skipped dessert and instead indulged in strong coffee. But here's my buddy. He decided to take action, inviting 2 potential clients outside. He handed them a toolbox and told them to strip his motorcycle down to the last nut and bolt. But here's the catch. They weren't allowed to touch the engine or transmission. The day was shaping up to be more than just an ordinary Monday. It was a whirlwind of strange happenings and laughter, full of randomness. It took nearly 2 hours, but when they finally finished, the excitement in the room was palpable. Coffee was poured, steam rising into the air, mingling with the remnants of the night's tension. Suddenly, the guy, engrossed in the game, abruptly set down the cue and hurried out. He looked around as if weighing his options and headed for the door. Before leaving, he cast one last glance at the dismantled pile of motorcycle parts that had once been his pride and joy. In the blink of an eye, he was gone, disappearing into the night in a taxi. And just like that, I ended up as the unwitting owner of a DIY bike. Liam suppressed a laugh, clearly amused by the ridiculousness of it all. But by morning it all made sense. Most of the parts had disappeared. What did Lucia say to him? I couldn't say for sure, but I suspected that Laura's name might have come up in the conversation. The week dragged on, each day blending into the next. When the divorce papers were filed, all that was left was the agonizing wait. 90 days felt like an eternity. I missed Laura's presence, the warmth of our conversations, but I couldn't bear the thought that everything would go back to the way it was. To keep myself occupied, I reached out to the company where Stephen Robinson used to work. It turned out he was no longer there, and he hadn't left any forwarding information. The local police department confirmed that no reports of a missing motorcycle had been filed. 2 weeks later, fate intervened, and I ran into Candy Lee at a shopping mall. It was completely unplanned, just a random encounter. She was sitting alone in a cafe, holding a cup of coffee, and her expression was somewhat melancholic. "May I join you?" I asked, catching her off guard this time, but not scaring her. She simply smiled and nodded, and a spark of connection was born between us amidst the bustle of the mall. We sat in heavy silence that seemed to last an eternity. Finally, she broke the silence with a quiet sigh. "Ethan, I'm sorry I ruined your marriage." "It wasn't about you," I replied. "It was about her. I was there, and I did everything I could for her. She came to me for help, and I couldn't turn away. After all, she was my only friend." Silence fell again, the weight of unspoken thoughts hanging in the air. "Is she with him now?" I asked, bracing myself for her answer. "She went back to her hometown to live with her parents, and he just disappeared. No calls, no messages, nothing. It's as if he turned into a ghost overnight. One minute he was there, and the next he just vanished." "Was she heartbroken?" I asked. "Her heart was torn apart from losing you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And him? Not a single tear for him." The question lingered on my tongue, but I hesitated. "But why did she do it?" I began, then quickly added, "But honestly, I don't want to know. Thank you for your time, Candy Lee." As I turned to leave, I saw unshed tears glistening in her eyes. The office atmosphere was quiet, in sharp contrast to the chaos in my head. There were still 2 weeks left until the final divorce, and I mindlessly counted nuts, bolts, and screws in a dusty pickle jar on my desk. And yet I couldn't shake the nagging curiosity about what he had been told that scared him so much he disappeared. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.